Yeah, it's turned on. The buttons are turned on the internal mic. Okay. Like this. What am I going to be doing? Am I following the tight on the action, or am I going wide, or? All right. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Oh. Sorry. Hang on. I'm trying to hook up the audio. Okay. Well, do I have to switch the buttons to make this? Input 1, or I think. Okay, I think that's what is it set right? I don't know. This camera. Okay.
I'm on camera 3, ready? I've got a headphone. Who needs it?
test 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. What? Okay.
afternoon. My name is Corey Olson. I'm the rector here at St. Andrews. I just wanted to take a minute before everything begins to welcome you into this space and say that we're glad you're here. We begin all of our services with these words: no matter where you come from or where you're going, no matter what you believe or what you doubt, no matter what you feel or cannot feel today, no matter who you love, you are welcome and safe in this place to be met by God. And so we're very glad that you're here today. And just before we started, I wanted to let you know where the bathrooms were, because that's the best way I know how to show hospitality. Through those two doors there, you'll see some swinging doors to the right, and the bathrooms are down that hallway. And there's also a water fountain there. And that's what I wanted to let you know. I'm very glad you're here. Welcome.
Think back on these times and the dreams we left behind, I'll be glad, 'cause I was blessed to get to have you in my life. When I look back on these days, I'll look and see your face. You were right there for me. In my dreams I'll always see you soar above the sky. In my heart there'll always be a place for you for all my life. I'll keep a part of you with me, and everywhere I am there you'll be. And everywhere I am there you'll be. Will you show me how it feels to feel the sky within my reach? And I always will remember all the strength you gave to me. Your love made me make it through. Oh, I owe so much to you. You were right there for me. In my dreams I'll always see you soar above the sky. In my heart there'll always be a place for you for all my life. I'll keep a part of you with me, and everywhere I am there you'll be. 'Cause I always saw in you my light, my strength. And I wanna thank you now for all the ways you were right there for me. You were right there for me.
Fare you well, my honey. Fare you well, my only true one. All the birds that were singing are flown except you alone. Gone to leave this broke down palace on my hands and my I will roll, roll, roll. Make myself a bed by the waterside. In my time, I will roll, roll, roll. In a bed by the waterside, I will lay my head. Listen to the river sing sweet songs to rock my soul. River, going to take me, sing me sweet and sleepy. Sing me sweet and sleepy all the way back home. It's a far gone lullaby sung many years ago. Mama, mama, many worlds I've come since I first left home. Going home by the waterside, I will rest my bones. Listen to the river sing sweet songs to rock my soul.
Ruff, you okay? Good? Okay. Whoopsie. Okay, so, gosh. All right, so I'm Laura Petrella, I'm Mary's wife. So, first of all, I wanted to thank everyone who came to Mary's celebration of life and those friends and family watching from far away. Tomorrow actually will be the first anniversary of her passing. Looking around, I know that there are people here who have known Mary longer than I have. And I met Mary in January 2011 at a drumming circle that she was hosting. It was a blast event. We got together in November that year and moved in July 2012. So we shared no more than 11 years together. We came from two totally different backgrounds, different countries, different religion, different life experience, taste in music. I have children. She had a cat. Louder? Yes. Okay. So we had something in common. We both could not cook at all. And nothing. Sorry, let me just stop it. So meal times would be a torturous adventure until Blue Apron and frozen meals. We were both really bad. All right, okay, so all of you who knew her know what a wonderful, generous, thoughtful friend she was. Smart, funny, humble, and kind, just to name a few of her traits. There was something special about Mary that I had never experienced in anyone else before. It was her kindness, her being real. She was genuine. She wasn't somebody else. There was only one Mary. There was the same one that she was outside meeting any of you guys. She was exactly the same person at home. You know, and there was no talking behind people. She was just real, authentic, kind of person that you rarely meet. And she had done work on herself. She lived an intensely deep life, expressed often through her poetry. And at the same time, she could be naive about other people and circumstances. You know what I'm talking about. She trusted people to be as honest as she was and gave everybody the benefit of the doubt. She used to tell me, this could be the best loving relationship of your life. And she was right. It was a kind, loving relationship. It doesn't mean we didn't fight. Doesn't mean that, though. You know, she used to tell me when I was frustrated, you know, to be kind to her friend Laura. And that was, you know, it was true. She used to tell me that I was the love of her life, and she was of mine. She was a great inspiration and support. So we had just 4 years before the cancer diagnosis. She lived 6.5 more. After her passing, her oncologist, Dr. Byron, told me that she did not think Mary had 2 years left after her diagnosis. So she lived 4.5 years extra. Mary was always optimistic throughout her disease. It helped her and it helped me. I will always remember her telling the hospice nurse that she had a long time to think about her own mortality and that she was okay, you know. She did have one regret, and she mentioned it actually, it was not to be able to continue with poetry. How much she loved poetry. Okay. Our lives, I had so much the feeling of precarity with the rhythms of the test, the doctor's visit, the treatment, the symptoms that could not be ignored. And yet, we had a special kind of happiness. We were happy with little things. You know, just being together. Holding each other, reassuring each other, and loving each other. At the end, you know, life is made of small things. Anyway, so I miss my love and my Engel forever. And I love you, Mary. And that's it. I'm so tears.
Hi, my name's Mike. I'm Mary's brother. Now I gotta compose myself after that. Lara. When Mary was born, there was a 14-year difference between us. I'm the oldest in the family of 5 siblings. Actually 6, but we had a little sister died when she was younger, but 5 in the family. This newest and youngest member of my family totally enchanted me when I was 14. I would hold her, my little baby girl, my sister. We had a special relationship. Right from the beginning. I was totally mesmerized by this little thing. My parents saw how much I loved her. And they asked me to be her godfather, which I totally failed at. But I carried that title with me my whole life. I loved my little sister. Little did I know as she grew, how special she would become. I'm a warrior. I played football, I wrestled, I played lacrosse, I retired as a police captain. I'm used to that kind of life. Yet, my sister goes the other way. Eventually retired, my little sister becomes the professor and poet that we all know. And we used to talk about all the time how different we were in our lives. I mean, here I am, the male, the female, the brother, the sister, the conservative, the liberal, the pragmatic, focused person I am, to the serendipitous, creative energy that she develops all the time. Yet, we loved each other, and we respected each other. Mary loved the words. To her, words had a life, had a soul, and had a heart. She wrote with passion and heartfelt compassion. She made me understand life through her poems in ways that it would never occur to me in my limited scope of life. I saw the love she had for the world, recognized how she gave life to feelings and emotions. She was my bard. When Mary developed cancer, she stayed true to herself and fought a battle greater than any I have ever encountered in my life. Oh, how she fought. She became what the Celts called a poet warrior. This is the epitome of a life, recognizing the beauty around us and the willingness to fight for it. Ultimately, my little sister, my bard, succumbed to the disease quietly at home with her light wife, my wonderful sister-in-law by her side, holding her hand. How I wish I had the power to fight like she did. As Mary was fighting to the end, she had the presence of mind to collect all her poems and just put them in a pile. Just put them in a pile, which is typical Mary, typical me too. I mean, I organized my piles so I could understand what she did, you know. She put everything in a pile. Then a couple wonderful friends, Regina Dillman, Judy Ireland, Susanna Simpson, they came and said, "You want us to organize her poems into an anthology?" I thought that was the most wonderful thing in the world. I'm humbled to know these women who collated, developed the anthology of her poems. The initial organization of Mary's poems was by these three women, Regina and Judy and Susanna. It was at this time that these wonderful women and scholars also named Mary's anthology, which I think is a great title for her book, The Secret Life of Love. The final formatting was done by Judy Ireland, Susanna Simpson, and Michael Mackin-O'Mara, the managing editor of the South Florida Poetry Journal. And I love the acronym of it, SoFloPojo. The first time my sister told me that, I thought she was crazy. I said, "What the heck are you talking about?" Then she explained what it was, and I got to see her speak and read her poems down in Miami. Sponsored by SoFloPojo. Michael also designed the cover. I sincerely thank Regina, Susanna, and Michael for the love and dedication to Mary through this project. I'll never be able to express my heartfelt thanks to them. Mary would have been able to write a poem about this. Me, all I can say is thank you. And I want to particularly thank Lara, the love of her life. Lara changed Mary. And I thank you for that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Robin. I'm Mary's friend. I met Mary one night. I had been working till 4 a.m, had left work, gone to class, and then gone back to work, and was coming home at 7 p.m., and there was like this thundering horde of boys with alcohol in my yard. I was like, no, it's got to be my neighbor's yard. This isn't my yard. And as I got closer, I realized it was my yard, and some guy I later learned was named Dan let me into my own house. And I went in, and I got my meager repast out of the fridge and found a tiny spot on my kitchen table, sat down and started eating, and there was this beautiful woman sitting near me, and she said, "This is the worst party I have ever been to." And I said, "I know, and it's my house." And then we went through this. I wish I had captured it. I wish there had been technology to capture it then, because we went through this amazing banter of art, literature, film, the tri-state area. I mean, everything. We covered everything in like this short little window of time. And I felt like this is magic. This doesn't happen all the time, you know? And I said, "Well, now you know where I live. You're welcome anytime. I manage the Mexican restaurant. You're welcome to come for dinner anytime you want. And it's a little feminist sweatshop by the bridge, you know." And then she was in class with me, and we were discovering the same kind of intellectual path. We had both actively engaged in the sophomoric initial realizations of literature, and we're finally on the, oh, my ideas kind of edge, you know? And this connection that we both had brothers that made us feel safe. We were both many years apart from our brothers, and in some ways we were, rather than youngest, we were more like onlys in some ways. And this unity and safety that I felt with her, I never really felt with a lot of other people. This blessing that she brought to my life. And we became inseparable, and it was this joy. I don't know how to describe it really. And I knew her family of origin. I met Bob Galvin. I met Shirley Galvin. I knew Mike. And we created a family of choice together. And we met one another's significant others and made sure throughout our lives that we did that and would deliver honest appraisals of them to one another. And then, I mean, I could go on and on. I called her one day. We would talk multiple times a week, and we would visit one another and travel together. And I called her one day when something humorous yet catastrophic had happened, and I said, "Oh my God, I have to tell you this." And she said, "Okay, wait, me first." And I said, "Okay." And she said, "I was just diagnosed with a rare form of breast cancer, and I have a short time to live." And I said, "There you go, making it all about you all the time." And a few months later, she was visiting, and we were sitting by the fire, which was our customary place, you know. And I said, "What's on the bucket list?" And she said, "You know, I've always wanted to go to Paris." And I said, "Well, let's just go to Paris." So we went to Paris. And we took this incredible walking tour with this dude, Stefan. And it was amazing. And I could tell she was exhausted. And we were standing in the Tuileries, which is Marie de Medici's garden. And there were all these students sleeping. And I asked the policeman if we were allowed to sleep there. And he's like, "Yeah, I guard the students. It's my life, you know?" So we slept in the Tuileries, which felt like this great rebellious act of 50-year-old women. And it was lovely. And, you know, I remember all these wonderful little bursts of joy with her. Like, we were having this really intense conversation at the beach in Provincetown about life, death, and the meaning of things. This is before she was ill. And she just turned to me. It was a very intense conversation. There was a beat of silence. And Mary could only ever remember one joke. My opinion, the worst joke I have ever heard. And she said it to me hundreds of times over 40 years, okay? This is the joke. Beat of silence, intense conversation. She, as Judy would noted, she made this little smirk, because she's like a 4-year-old getting you know? And then she said, "Why did the monkey fall out of the tree?" "Because it was dead." And then she laughed hilariously like it was, you know. And I was like, still not funny. You're 30, still not funny, you know? But she opened my heart in ways that my heart had never been opened. And the things she taught me in our life together were two simple things. Be open, bring love, and keep fear in check. Fear is sometimes an important warning to listen to, and then sometimes it's misinformation, you know? And I have not been able to find my tears, and I'm hoping that today, as we reassemble Mary through our love, I can find them. But I think it's denial. I believe that as long as we are all here, she's still here. I'm not sure. Right before I left my state to come here, over the coming few days, I saw lots of white butterflies, like lots of them. And then the morning I was leaving, there was like a convention of white butterflies in my garden. White butterflies are a sign that someone from the other side is coming to tell you they're okay. And, you know, I just thought maybe this is Mary's way of kind of trying to tell us that, you know? There is a moment in Mary's journey where this was a release. This end was a release. Her body had betrayed her. It had done as best it could, but her case was failing. And her soul was still there, and through the work of Regina and Susanna and Judy, her children, her poems live on. But there wouldn't be new poems, you know? So I'm asking all of you if you would be so kind sometime today to share with me, either electronically or humanly, the joys that you had with Mary and how she may have helped you grow, or just a moment that you had, or maybe the telling of the bad joke, because I couldn't be the only victim. So I wanted to share that. And then, you know, love, I saw Mary through a lot of different sorts of experiences. But she called me, and we were going to Provincetown. She was going there too. And then she said, I'm getting married. Would you give me away? And she had called me and told me this thing a while before and said, so I met this woman. She's Italian. She's beautiful. She's cultured. It was like a 17-year-old with a crush. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, does she know the Beatles? She was so in love. It was like electric. So I get to Provincetown, and I meet Laura, and I see the essential thing has happened. They have created the love thing. It's not about the people. It's about the thing you create together, the love thing, and the two of you nurture it and grow it together. And they had done that, and it was incredibly beautiful. And as I went to give her away, I said to her, you realize I'm not really giving you away, I'm sharing you. Because now it's an extension of more love. It's not, you know, now you get to go live in Wisconsin. That is not how this works, you know? And so it was beautiful. And seeing her in my visits, having developed this new family, was really beautiful. So I thank Laura and Mike and Judy and Susanna and Regina for helping her create that community. And I thank all of you for doing that for her. The love that I had for Mary, I don't even know how to articulate it. You know, I know that we're humans and we tend to categorize and stuff, and I have no way of categorizing it because I was a Pisces, she was a Cancer, so we're the perfect friendship kind of combination. That's like my most petty hippie interpretation. But this poem, I always thought encapsulated it, and when I read it to Mary, she kind of like welled a little bit. And I could never tell, and I was too afraid to ask if she was welling because she thought it was beautiful or because she was so mad. So, one or the other. This is E.E. Cummings, Somewhere I Have Never Traveled. Somewhere I have never traveled, gladly beyond my experience. Your eyes have their silence. In your most fragile gesture are things which enclose me, or which I cannot touch because they are too near. Your slightest look easily will enclose me, though I have closed myself as fingers. You open always petal by petal myself as spring opens, touching skillfully, mysteriously, her first rose. Now I'll skip to the end. I do not know what it is about you that closes and opens. Only something in me understands the voice of your eyes is deeper than all roses, and nobody, not even the rain, has such small hands. So I thank you all for the love you've given, and I hand it over to the next person.
My name is Judy, Ireland, and I met Mary briefly in 2002 at a party. And it wasn't very long after that where we had briefly just said hello to each other and mentioned that we both wrote poems, that I went to an exhibit of John Lennon's drawings in Delray Beach. And out from behind one of John Lennon's giant blown-up drawings popped Mary's head. And she said, "Judy, is that you?" And we went off and had coffee and talked more about poetry, and that was the beginning of a 20-plus year friendship. Our friendship really revolved around music and poetry, which, as all you poets know at least, are not unrelated. We went to many concerts. We saw Joan Armatrading. We saw Bob Dylan, Santana, many others. We watched Jethro Tull in the rain, and we didn't care. One weekend in 2008, we saw Katie Lang one night and Paul Simon the next night. And if there was a Grateful Dead cover band, we were there. Poetry was always the center of our conversations. And we attended many groups and workshops. We attended the Palm Beach Poetry Festival in Delray Beach every year. And we engaged in what Mary called urban poet car camping. When all the participants went back to their luxury hotels on the afternoon to take a nap, Mary and I went to our respective cars, which we had loaded with blankets, pillows, and thermoses of coffee. Since I was the lighter sleeper, it was my job to go to Mary's car and tap on her window when it was time to go back to the festival. I had the immense privilege of being at the Blast Drum Circle where Mary met the love of her life, Laura. They were at my house every Thanksgiving, and I was at their house every New Year's Day. Over the past couple of years, Mary had to have tests and scans and various medical appointments that were stressful and challenging. On those days, at the time of her appointment, Mary knew that Regina and Susanna and I were reading passages from Whitman for her from our respective locations. So today I'm going to end with two short passages from Whitman. What do you think has become of the young and old men, and what do you think has become of the women and children? They are alive and well somewhere. The smallest sprout shows there is really no death. And if ever there was, it led forward life, and does not wait at the end to arrest it, and seized the moment life appeared. All goes onward and outward, and nothing collapses. And to die is different from what anyone supposed, and luckier. Has anyone supposed it lucky to be born? I hasten to inform him or her it is just as lucky to die, and I know it. I pass death with the dying, and birth with the new-washed babe, and am not contained between my hat and boots. I depart as air. I shake my white locks at the runaway sun. I effuse my flesh in eddies and drift it in lacy jags. I bequeath myself to the dirt to grow from the grass I love. If you want me again, look for me under your boot soles. You will hardly know who I am or what I mean, but I shall be good health to you nevertheless, and filter and fiber your blood. Failing to fetch me at first, keep encouraged. Missing me one place, search another. I stop somewhere waiting for you.
I'm not going to stand on this thing. Yeah. So I'm Jeff Douglas. That's my wife and kids back there. I'm lucky enough to have lived next to Mary for almost 13 years now. So 2009, we moved on to O Street, 8th block of O Street. My friend's in the backyard. He's looking over. He's like, man, those are some nice lychees over there. You need to go meet whoever that is that has that lychee tree. You got mangoes. Just go trade them. So I look at I think it's a Corolla, maybe she had a blue Corolla, and on the license tag is, have a grateful day. well, that's my in right there. You know, I go over with like a couple of shows from like 1989. You know, there was like the Internet Archive had just come out, so you know, you get all this free music, download it onto CDs, like show up with a couple of CDs, like, hey, I got some mangoes too, you want to trade for some lychees? And we started being friends then. Mary moved away, we kind of lost touch a little bit, and my wife and I, when my wife was actually going to our, like closing on our house, last inspection, Princeton Drive, who's across the street? Mary's across the street. You guys moving in? Yeah, we are now. We got neighbors right here. We met Laura then, and I mean, so Laura and Mary and my family, like we consider them part of our family. I really miss just being able to walk out of the house and sit down in the yard, in Mary's front yard, or before it was in the backyard, and just have conversations. And it was easy conversations. And I mean, like you said, we're both, our politics align. Sorry, Mike. Our music taste aligns. Sorry, Laura. You know, it's like, so we would just, I mean, it was like effortless, these conversations that we would have, and it was just like, we'd both be talking, you couldn't get us to shut up, and I would be like, oh, I gotta get back over at home. I'm supposed to be doing stuff around my house, I have twins, and I'm just like hanging out in the backyard, talking to Mary. My wife would go out of town, or the kids would go out of town, like, hey, I got a fight in the backyard, you wanna come over? Mary come over, like, Laura one time's like, are you cheating? Like, what's going, you know, like, I really miss having my friend across the street. I really miss being able to spend time with her. I could talk a lot longer and not speak nearly as eloquently as the other people that have, so I'm kind of gonna let it go there. I just miss her.
I'm going to use the step stool. Can you all see me? Okay. Mary became my friend by inviting me in. I taught at the Belglade campus of Palm Beach State College. And she saw me one day at a faculty cluster meeting, and I was off by myself. I didn't know anybody on Central Campus. And she said, why don't you come over here and sit with us? And that's how the friendship started. I think, Regina, you were with us when that happened, you know. And of course, you talk shop. You know, the meeting was about to start, and, Mary could be she could cut to the chase. You know, when we were talking about the new class this or the new class that, she said, let's not reinvent the wheel. What works, works, let's go with it. And that was really something that attracted me. And then inevitably, it turned to poetry. Mary told me she was a poet, and she knew I was a poet. And we started talking about poetry, of course. And every time we'd have a faculty meeting, we knew what was on the agenda, but the real agenda was the poetry. We wanted to know what each of us was doing. What are you up to? I remember when she was working on a group of poems, the Spoon River Anthology. And this was something that I said, you really got to go follow that down. I thought it was some terrific stuff. And she told me she admired that I liked to work in form, different kinds of forms and stuff. And she really, and she said, it must be hard, it must be hard. You have to work at it. And I said, well, actually, it's, my wife who's sitting back there, she's terrific at puzzles and all kinds of things, and she's an artist and in her own right so many gifted areas. And I said, it kind of comes easy to me the way, some people can do puzzles. And I said, what I like about your poetry, Mary, is your directness, how you can get to the chase and how you could make us be there in a moment. I find that amazing. It must come easy to you. And she said to me, you have to work at it. And that's how life is. You have to work at it. And Mary was like that. It's easy to camouflage. And Mary didn't camouflage. Her directness came out of work. Her directness came out of a truth she believed in. And that's what I told her I so admired. In fact, that's what I so admired about her manuscript, and I'm so grateful that you guys helped put it together. And I'm glad it's there for us to take with us. So I'd like to share a couple of poems from that manuscript that I happen to like. We all have our favorites. Mary had hers, you know. This is her writing about nature. And, you know, you mentioned, you know, Song of Myself, the end of Whitman, you know, look for me under your boot soles. You know, Mary knew about nature, too. This is called Since Florida is, these are Mary's poems. Since Florida is a peninsula. The most obvious best place to lose keys is beneath the rumble of the ocean. The metallic click-clack of their fall muffled by the scruffy-edged breakers. The bright blue man-of-war will float. Your keys will sink and settle to rust in the fine sand. That childhood amulet attached to the ring will mean nothing to the shark. Mary's poem, Mammogram. All day, she squeezes women's breasts between glass plates, runs the scans. She places the stickers on each nipple, like a gold star on a good child, though at the end of her long day, she won't remember how she helps shift my particular breasts into a series of silly poses. She does not consider the ridiculousness. She wants to help keep women safe. I do not know her name. From the start, she is sweet enough, asks all the right questions, shares the tale of her not own, but her aunt's experience. Similar to my own, of the return of the renegade menstrual cycle after more than a year's sojourn. Quote, hormonal vagaries are the one constant, end quote. So should have said Lao Tzu. Thank you, Mary, for your poems.
So how you guys doing? My name's Craig Ryan. I was a student of Mary's for a long time. We met in 2011, I believe, and we started the Creative Writers Alliance together. I wrote something shortly after she passed, actually. I want to read to you guys. I haven't had a chance to share it with anyone. But I also there's something I want to talk about that I didn't write, which was our last meeting. Been thinking about it all day today, last time I spoke to Mary. It was really funny, actually. This was at an open mic at, I believe it was called The Bookseller, right down the road, right? And it was at the end of the open mic. We were all kind of carousing and talking to each other. And I had just graduated with my master's. Largely, by the way, in part thanks to her. A very large part, actually, just her influence and her guidance. And she had seen how tan I was. I hadn't really tan recently, because after I graduated and I'd been teaching for 3 years, what I'd started doing was hard labor. And she asked me about that. I'm like, it's just, it's the summer. There's no teaching jobs right now. She's like, yeah, I did the one thing, Craig, that I told myself I would never do. I started taking jobs from adjuncts. And I was like, it is what it is. And I really just wish that we just left it at that. But I could see Mary just wanted to keep going with it. And she goes, it's like, I'm just willing to just like leave it at that. I'm like, I'm ready to pick up the shovel and the plow at this point, Mary. She goes, well, Craig, maybe you'll lose some weight. And we both just started laughing, and that's the kind of relationship that we had. where we would prod and goad each other a little bit. Anyways, got a little over a page, so if you guys will bear with me, this is what I wrote about a year ago. Simply put, there is the time in my life before I met Mary Galvin and the time after. An evolution took place in the meeting of her that had to do with literature and my ability to see, and her ability to make me see what was so drastically lacking in myself. I saw no potential for my life, no potential for improvement, no potential at all for anything, honestly. I look at the time before I met her as a kind of crawling and primordial ooze without a spine and without eyes. I had a tail and I had claws, but I had no language. I could do little in my life besides wait and strike. I knew, however, that I knew nothing, but I also knew that reaching me was unlikely. It seemed like I lived in a world where people simply took advantage of each other, where everyone around me was waiting for their chance to strike. I also knew that I wanted to be better. I knew that art was the key somehow. I drifted in drawing classes and lit classes, but the gulf between me and my fellow man daunted me, and I usually passed with C's if I passed at all. Then I stumbled into Mary Galvin's class, and I had my first writing workshop. What she did was she put the desks to one side of the room and put all the chairs in a circle. She was always smiling in her classes, always infinitely patient with her students. In the circle of my peers, I felt the charge of writing, of what it meant to reveal a section of my soul. I felt it, the thing that was to help forge the rest of my life. And I told her that I wanted to do it again and again forever. She told me that it wouldn't always be as smooth as it just had been, but that she was making a club, then called the Scribblers Club, that she'd love a little help. I went to every meeting of that club, then to every workshop. I was suddenly hungry, full of an endless appetite for stories and literature and for personal experience, for people to talk about what they thought, and in those workshops I would meet everyone who was to become my lifelong friend. It's hard to explain the camaraderie that exists between writers, and the difference between writers and the rest of the world. We get off on talking about the things that people usually try to conceal, our secrets, their childhoods, our pathologies, and how they're influenced. I felt from the first meeting that these people knew me better than my own family, and there were to be many, many more meetings. She was right, of course, though. It was not easy. Mary knew that the workshoppers, myself included, were taking the hard knuckles pathway of beating the bad writing out of our hearts, cutting not just the lines on the page, but the parts of ourselves that wrote those lines. And so her tactic was to always be kind. She knew that it was hard, and that most people couldn't hack it. She also knew that those who did would form a clique and ostracize those who came after us. She knew that if you were too hard on somebody too quick, you'd scare them away for good, which to her was a sacred taboo. And so she tried to see the best in all of us and to get us to see the best in ourselves. Outside of the classroom, of course, she had no great patience for stupidity. It's one of the things that I always admired about her. One of the things that I tried to instill in myself since. Her theory that ignorance could be taught away, but that the willingness to be stupid was never to be endured. She also believed in refinement and exposing yourself to new things. She dragged us to every reading in Palm Beach County and outside. The Miami Book Fair, Oh Miami, the Palm Beach Poetry Festival, and to various open mics around Lake Worth. Then, when I got my master's degree, she started giving me advice on teaching. This is advice that I still carry to this day because it is a lonely life being a professor of anything. To try to teach and to make it seem effortless and seamless, no matter what you yourself carry into that classroom. She told me when I first started that there are days she goes into the classroom with nothing more than a certain knowledge that at least she's done the reading. She told me, quote, "Craig, sometimes I go in there with nothing." We both laughed. Though now, years later, I understood how daunting that task must have been. How daunting it must have been in those final years to go in there and listen to 18-year-olds with their so-called problems. She did not let it dawn her, though, not openly anyway. She worked right up until the end because she loved the job. I should also mention here that the Creative Writers Alliance was not part of her work. It didn't pay anything. I think that we had a symbiotic relationship in that we reminded her that it was not all for naught, that there were people in this world who wanted to learn, and indeed students like myself who needed this more desperately than we needed, to quote one of her poems, the next sip of air. We needed to know that we lived in a world where what happened to us mattered, where we had a voice, and where that voice could be sharpened to the point of a song on a page, something that could stand alone and apart from us. I read her work now and I still hear her voice, and it reminds me that she was right, that what we say does live on if we say it true enough. I hesitate to say anything about the cancer except that she was lighthearted about it in the time that I knew her. She joked about her short hair. One of my fondest memories was at a poetry reading. One of the people on stage said, quotes, "It's hard to imagine a poet hurting anyone except the people that they love." And I laughed loudly, as I'm off to do, and Mary Galvin turned around and saw my big red face and laughed herself and said, "I knew it was you." This was one of our last meetings together. And after we met and hugged, she patted her bald head and said, "I'm bald." And she said it with a smile. She lived, after all, the life that she wanted to live, a life of words, a life with kind, thoughtful people, a life in love, which I was to learn later makes all the difference in the world. To go home to somebody and to be madly in love, it was what those poems and what those stories were written for. All those ones that fill up the libraries and the bookstores. It was their final lesson to me that this way of life is preferable. Thank you all.
So we're open to hearing anything unprepared, whatever, or prepared, from anybody else. If anybody, and it doesn't have to be, as good as everybody else's. That's what I'm saying. It's just anything simple. Oh, there's a hand being raised. Okay, so please, you're welcome to say any memories, anything that you want to share with us. It helps me, So thank you so much.
I think Robin inspired me to just share something really beautiful. Because I haven't had a problem with the tears. It's weird. So, just started today because this is her day, her butterflies. I had a totally different experience of Mary. I'm just a regular person, but I did have a good education. And she had written a novel. I think this was early, about 2005. And there were a lot of circles that I would meet her at. And we would hang out together. And it was like having this wonderful sister that we'd light up when we saw it. Like you wish you got along with your sister like that. We'd sit together at the events, and there's a meetup that we go to. It's called Blast. And whenever there was a Blast event, I'd look for Mary, and we'd sit together. We'd always get to this great place together. And she was carrying around this 2-inch manuscript wherever she went. And I thought, okay, I can read and write. I want to read it. And she said, "Thank you. Thank you." So I took this 8.5 by 11 book, this thick, and I put it in my car. I took it everywhere with me for about 3 weeks. And I started reading it, and you know, it was, of course, beautifully written. It was about a child who had this experience in the woods in a big tree. Did anyone else read that one? And it was really compelling. And then all of a sudden, around, I don't know, the second chapter, I realized it was a horror story. And I don't do horror. I just don't do horror. I can't sleep, you know. So then I went through about 2 more weeks of suffering because I didn't know how to tell her I couldn't read it. So finally, I just brought it with me. And we sat somewhere and I said, it is so beautifully written. I loved it, but I can't read it because I'm scared. It was about this big maw, like a big mouth in the tree or something. And I was really, really nervous because I didn't want to lose this friend I had made. And I still remember that moment like it was just yesterday. She looked at me like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter you can't read my book. That stuff doesn't matter. I said, really? Really? I've been in a tizzy all week. And she just gave me this amazing hug that I think everybody has touched on, that really transcends the poetry and it transcends her goals and her expertise, that she was just really an angel. And I really miss her. And I know once she got together with Laura, I didn't see her as much. Things change, you know. But we really did have a couple of really good, maybe a few years there where we really had a beautiful friendship. Just like we were 16 years old, you know. So I just wanted to share that with you, Robin. Yeah.
And everyone, all your talking today has brought back so many wonderful memories of Mary. I'm Regina Dilger. Can you hear me okay now? And I was saying all your wonderful comments have brought back so many memories of Mary today. Mike, your comments about how really kind Mary was, and everybody's comments about how honest Mary was, have really struck me. I was her colleague at Palm Beach State College, and once I was a guest in her class. It was an introduction to poetry class, and she recited the Jabberwocky from memory. They loved it. She was so authentic and giving in the classroom. And you know what, Craig, you can vouch for this. Students know when a teacher cares about them and is being honest and upfront. And that day she went in, like Craig said, with nothing, open hands, no book or anything, just talking. They were rapt, they were listening. Another day, and this was after Mary was sick, I substituted for her class, and they were doing presentations. They were so polite to me, the sub, you know how students can be with subs sometimes? They were so polite to me, but what they said is, we wish she was here, we miss her. They knew she was sick. They looked at me like, thanks for coming, you're doing a nice thing, but boy, do we miss her. And that's what I'm remembering today. So thank you, everyone who's spoken, for bringing back those memories. She loved her job. She was deeply committed. She was very loved and appreciated there, too. So just to share that with you, everyone. Thank you. You're welcome.
Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Etana, I want to talk about what I don't know about Mary. And so we came down looking about whether we could live in Florida, and I had some relatives who were kind of conservative, and one friend and Blast, and that was a good thing. And then at a drumming circle, I was sitting next to Mary and found out that she was a college English teacher, and I thought, oh, there's some smart, creative, intellectual people here. And I said to her, I only have 2 more days here, Carolyn, I only have 2 more days, but we're thinking about coming down, and could we come over to your house? And she kind of didn't want to, and I said, please. And so then we became friends, and then we moved down here, and by the time we moved down, I think already she had been diagnosed with cancer. And my focus with Mary was treating her as if she wasn't sick. I have a problem with people that are sick, and I just wanted to treat her like it wasn't, like, not that it wasn't happening, but that wasn't the part that I was relating to her about. But it was also Carol and me and Laura and Mary. And I never really spent much time, if at all, with just Mary and me. And what I want to talk about briefly is going forward, this time making me feel like, how can I be closer with people? How can I connect better to the people that are alive? How can I connect regardless of whether we share the same politics or disagree about this or that? Friendship's not only about, oh, we have so much in common, we'll be friends. You know, it feels like when we were younger, it was almost easier to be friends than it is now. And so I just want to take for myself and encourage you all to find ways of connecting closer. You know, talk about things that are more honest. Take time to not be with your couple when you're connecting with someone, because you really get to know them better one-on-one. And that's all I want to say.
Hello, everyone. My name is Deb Kwan. That's what Mary would always call me. She would always say, oh, it's Deb Kwan. I can still hear her say that. Some of the adventures that I've had with Mary, there was this one time we went kayaking in the Snook Islands, and the tide was out, and it was very, very shallow. So we got stuck in the mud trying to portage our kayaks through the mud. That was quite the adventure that day. But we made it. We survived. We survived to live another day. And yeah, Thanksgiving and Christmas will never be the same. Mary always brought the green beans with the slivered almonds, and I always thought that was so special. You know, it was like not a holiday without that dish. And then, you know, celebrating the new year at Mary and Laura's with the lentils, the dal, you know, just one thing, like being with Mary, we loved to eat. We did definitely love to eat, and just, I guess, the things that we had in common is we were a lover of women and a lover of food. So I don't think that's too bad of a thing to have in common. But I miss Mary like crazy. She's written some beautiful poems, and I hope if you get a chance to grab one of her books today, because she does live on in our hearts. And it is a really big, big loss. And I know a lot of us are hurting today. So maybe meet someone you haven't met before and give them a hug, because I'm sure we could all use it. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Enid Cohn. I actually only knew Mary through Lara. I remember the first time I met them, it was actually a Halloween party. And I really had no idea what she looked like because she was dressed up like a man with a beard and mustache and weird, so, afterwards it's like, I don't know what she looks like. It's like literally I had no idea what she looked like. And I actually have always lived pretty far away. I, used to live in, Dade County, South Broward, and even now, through the torrential rain I got here, it takes over an hour to get here. But I've always been friends for a very long time with Lara, and through Lara, became friends with Mary. And I think I came more often and saw them, and they used to come to me frequently for like Passover, for holidays. But I know as she got sick, I think I started to see the deeper sides of Mary. And, Laura and I have always been very close, but, so I felt open to say, whatever I wanted. And I have memories, I was told Laura recently, where I was a little annoyed with Laura about something. And I told, Mary, and Mary was very loving and protective. And I found that very sweet. And even when she was sick, it's like, so what that she was, swollen? So what that the hair was gone? She was open and she was there and she was willing to keep living. It never stopped. And as I know, the relationship, you would think, it, would go down and with them her being sick, and it didn't. It actually brought them closer, and it was actually very sweet. And I just want Laura to know that I'm sorry that Mary is gone, but you're still loved, and we're still here for you.
I put together a series of poems as read by Mary. I'm not going to play them all. I'm just going to play one, okay? Because I think it's nice to see Mary alive again, okay? So just give me a moment.
A love poem. A love poem. Whenever I hear you hum, I know that soon the off-key singing will begin.
Oh boy.
Bad, huh?
I found it just in time. When you sing, I know I am in a musical comedy and it will be all right. You carry even the loathsome worm if it has the slightest squiggle of life left, carefully to the door to release into the garden. You do the same for the spider, except when she scrambles too quickly and in an instinctive panic you squish her, then feel bad for what you've done. You are kinder than I am and give the stranger the dollar. Your lines are less rigidly drawn as you swerve and careen through your days, and at the end of them bump into me here at home, and we enfold one another into each other's arms. I love the way you mix the words and melodies of half-forgotten, once popular songs. When I feel your breathing warmth next to me, there is no need to say anything at all.
Thank you, Mary.
right, this is the 2-poem warning. I always like to, people say that they only write poetry when they're depressed and heartbroken, and I've only written poems about the heart when I've been in love, so. And this is a Valentine for Laura, who's my videographer over there. Sorry. After all, a Valentine for Laura. After all, there is no need when I let you take my hand soft in the jasmine-scented night, when we walk without hurry, let our little dog's fascination or disinterest set the pace, our humorous cat alternately trailing and racing ahead, while the waxing moon slides her back down the long side of the western sky, before or after the unreachable stars glitter around us, nor during our return to the earthly living of slicing tomatoes and toasting bread, the chocolates, the dishes, the steady work, the hum of the TV and flicker of phone light, the comings of living, the leavings of death, the threading of fine needles, the long jumps over chasms, the clanks and the quietude, the saltwater sea spray and the taste of small tears. There is no need to say much of anything at all.
Okay, I'm ready now.
I had my coffee, so I'm certainly ready. Thank you guys for coming. This is really, really nice. We're here at the wonderful Betsy Hotel, South Beach, Miami. And if any of you have never been here before, I think you'll see that this is a beautiful place to just come and do anything, let alone poetry. Anyway,
The audience is trying to not for it.
Can I be upset if I get forward a little bit?
Poetics, which was published by Greenwood Prager in 1999, a critical study of modernist women poets. Here to listen to Mary Galvin, who I met not all that long ago. She is the first of the partnership between the Betsy Hotel and South Florida Poetry Journal, or as we like to call it, SoFlo Pojo. And offering a residency in the writer's room, which is a lovely little room downstairs on the first floor where you can come and write. You can work on a manuscript, you work on some poetry, etc. And it's just a wonderful space. And then, of course, you're surrounded by this hotel, which is magnificent. And anybody who puts up photos of the Beatles and the Rolling Stones is okay in my book. I don't know if you've seen the.
I've already.
And then, of course, you got the ocean right there, and it's just and the food here. So I gush about the Betsy. It's just fantastic. Mary Galvin lives in Lake Worth. I think everybody here knows that. And she's been reading and writing poetry since she was a child, which is 5 or 6 years now. Her poetry has been published in Southern Women's Review, Homestead Review, East Coast Literary Review.
Thank you to Lenny and SoFlo Pojo and the Betsy Hotel. I thought I'd start with the really painful poems first. And I hope they're not painful. And this one was just published in SoFlo Pojo. The February issue is live, and I have 3 poems in it. Can you guys hear me okay?
Do you want to get the mic a little bit closer, a little bit lower? Hello. Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. So I should be more in front of it?
No, stay on that side.
On this side? Good. Yeah. Okay. It's called Null and Void, and it's after a poem by Juan Felipe Herrera, who was recently Poet Laureate of the U.S., the first Latino poet laureate. All right, Null and Void. I arrive at campus, it is the color of a beach. Grade school, high school, community college, a slaughter boy swings his rucksack over his shoulder, saunters as if it were his domain, cocky marauder, I want to say. His chin set, the slaughter boy is a child, I think. His soft hair falling across his eyes, he brushes it back, sweat catching in the fine hairs above his lip. He licks his lips and swallows hard and looks across the green patch of lawn between the parking lot and the buildings. In the back of a classroom, a girl drifts out the window, the teacher's monotone indistinguishable from a humming in her head. She hears a pop like a loud balloon from the room next door, another one nearby in the hall, and then she sees Slaughter Boy standing at the door. A desk, perhaps it's a desk, flies apart. She doesn't know what could make it splinter into the air like that, and now it's raining down. More desks screech and crash. Her classmates scream. She looks at the teacher, who is now lying down at the front of the room, a dark stain spreading across his dull dress shirt. Something wet slaps her across her face. She flinches away from her classmate's gore before her vision tilts and slips away. Here it is, the land of the free, where the rocket's red glare is reflected in every Slaughter Boy's eyes. Here it is, a nation of grief. My country, 'tis of the land where our fathers died, land where our children thrive if they can hide from the Slaughter Boy today. I left campus late today. Dark was near. There were meetings and an extra cup of coffee in the afternoon. A flock of ibis crossed the road, forming a line, comical in their whiteness against the dull black and yellow of the silent policeman lying across the road. A heron flew from the pond, and a few iguanas were still sunning on the grassy banks. There was enough sun left for that. I listened to the radio, listened to the story for today, listened to Umpqua, to Sandy Hook, Virginia Tech, Columbine, listen to the humming in my head as it builds like thunderclouds about to split the sky. The barometric pressure builds from within. I want to open the windows. I want to pull that girl out by her dreams into the remaining light of the day. I want to tell her the wreckage and blood that Slaughter Boy brings is only a story she saw last night on TV. Yeah. I don't usually do like current event type of poems or political poems, but I was trying to match it with other ones and I couldn't really find any. So these are newer poems. Some of them are a little older, some of them are really new and maybe not done. I think I'll probably do them all. There's 5 of them so far. You all know that I've been living with cancer for 4 years now, and successfully. And it's taken a while, though, to be able to get my head around writing something for it. That doesn't sound cliche or self-pitying or anything like that. But so here, I think they're kind of in order of when I wrote them. So, okay. This one's called The Diagnosis. How did that woman feel after the main beam fell and she lay beneath for how long, watching the sunlight inch across the slivered spaces between crumpled rafters and crumbled walls, then disappear into the ruinous night? Flecks of paint and wallpaper mingle with the concrete dust slowly sifting down. In a moment, she wandered from the quotidian into the incomprehensible. Who thinks about the way the ground can shake and knock you down in the middle of the day at home? No one, until it happens to you. Then all that exists is the body and its predicament, how to pass the long time. First, you survey what limbs and joints are free, what is broken, what is whole. Consider if it's best to keep moving your digits or better to conserve the energy left to you now. You soon learn it's better to listen than to scream, savor every sip of air, choose not to think of thirst, breathe in, breathe out. A Zen mentality will keep you calm enough to think, as if that were a good thing. All the thinking in the world will not get you out of this one. What is there, after all, to think about? Everything? Nothing at all? The gray ceiling of debris looms like a thunderstorm whose dense clouds will not break. In moments like this, lightning seems preferable. You tell yourself stories about the quick deaths called merciful with no time to think, not enough time to even know. About the ones who die slowly of blood loss or more slowly still, dehydration or lack of will. The trapped miners who stayed alive for 31 days. This is the one you try to believe after the pointless rehearsal of possible outcomes, like the skeletal sunlight inching forward again. You'd return to the body and its predicament, the vigilant inventory of functionality and pain. It's like watching a movie you're in. You're both there and not there. Pixelated dust. You hope for a wind to lift and swirl the rubble until it plumes, a comet's tail streaking into the furthest reaches of the night, dreaming of the cosmos and its dust-smoked stars. You could sit beneath for hours, astonished and awake.
Oh, yeah. You wrote up the schedule for me. Actually, I was going to say a lot more with my original thing, but she surprised me saying I'm supposed to be closing. A couple things before we do that is, Deborah, got to know that Mary and I are exactly alike. I love women and also like to eat. But anyway, I heard some wonderful, wonderful things here today. Craig, where's Craig? There you are. To me, you're the epitome of what my sister was dealing with before. I can remember going to Albany and watching her. She was an adjunct professor there. And she says, Mike, I want you to come to one of my classes. And of course, it's one of my favorite topics, is poetry and feminism and women's rights and all this other stuff. So I said, sure. She says, but you can't open your mouth. Can't say a thing. I went in that class and was mesmerized by my little sister talking and lecturing. It was just phenomenal. And then we had this whole conversation on the way home. That's what I see in you. I think it's a wonderful thing. We're going to miss her because of that. But this last thing, I get very emotional about my baby. The last thing I wanted to say, and I apologize to you poets out there because I wrote a poem to my sister. And I'm going to steal a line from the great English poet John Donne. Title is Mary, my sister, my bard. Death be not proud, for you are but a passing shade. My poetry, the soul enlightens. My words, etern roar. A poet warrior honored, my spirit liveth, though my body no more. I am love remembered. Your brother Mike. Please eat. First thing cops know, you don't get wet and you don't go hungry. So I'm first in line. Let's go.
tilt it.
There we go.
Go this way.
It's kind of dark. I'm going to 31 dB.
So many of us know each other that, you know.
She's like in the back of people. Lady looks okay. I had to get her attention so she looked at the camera. My arms are getting tired. Yeah. That's enough. I think we got enough. All right. turn it off. Stop recording.
How you doing?